Rin had never seen halls as bright as those of the alien palace. The walls shone like crystal, and the air smelled of flowers he had never known on Earth. He stood in silence, his rough boots making soft sounds on the polished floor. Many eyes were on him, eyes of guards dressed in armor far finer than his own. Their weapons were made of light and steel, while Rin carried only a plain blade at his side. He felt small among them, but he kept his back straight. A guard, no matter how poor, must stand with pride. At the far end of the hall, a tall figure waited. She was Princess Liora, daughter of the High Council, heir of a world filled with riches and power. She wore silver robes that shimmered when she moved, and her crown was shaped like wings. Her eyes were the deep teal blue of the ocean sky. Rin had heard many tales of the princess before. They said she was wise, though young, and curious about all things beyond her world. He had never thought he would see her with his own eyes, let alone serve as her guard. Yet here he was, chosen not by wealth, not by strength, but by the council's strange decision. The head steward spoke loudly for all to hear. "This is Rin, the human soldier from Earth. By order of the council, he will guard the princess in her daily steps. His duty is to protect her life with his own." The other guards frowned. Some whispered to each other. To them, Rin was no more than a poor outsider. But the steward's word was law. Liora studied him for a long moment. Her gaze was calm, but there was something sharp in her eyes, as if she was measuring him. Finally, she spoke. "You are far from your home, human. Do you understand what this task means?" Rin placed his hand over his chest and bowed his head. "I understand, princess. My life is yours to command. I will keep you safe." The princess turned away, giving no sign of approval or rejection. She began walking, and Rin followed a few steps behind. The palace was alive with activity. Servants carried trays of food that shimmered like jewels. Scholars moved in long robes, carrying scrolls filled with alien script. Children of noble families played in gardens where the trees glowed with soft light. Rin saw wonders at every turn, yet he did not let his eyes wander. His duty was the princess. For hours he followed her through the halls, up stairways carved from crystal, and into great chambers where nobles gathered. She spoke with them in a calm voice, and though Rin could not understand all the alien words, he watched her carefully. She was graceful, yet distant, as if the weight of her crown kept her from warmth. When evening came, the princess returned to her private garden. There she turned and looked at Rin again. "You are silent," she said. "Do you not wish to speak?" Rin shook his head. "My place is to guard, not to disturb." Her lips curved into the smallest of smiles, but it was gone in a breath. She walked among the flowers, touching the petals as she passed. Then she spoke again, her voice soft. "Others begged for this duty. They carried gifts and promises. Yet the council chose you, who came with nothing. Why do you think they chose you?" Rin paused before answering. "Perhaps because I have nothing to gain, princess. I am poor, but I have my honor. My word is worth more to me than riches." Liora tilted her head, as if his answer was worth considering. "We will see if your word has weight," she said. The stars began to rise above the palace walls. 2 moons shone side by side, painting the sky in silver light. Rin stood at the edge of the garden, his hand resting on his blade. The princess lingered near the fountain, her eyes fixed on the night. Though she said nothing more, Rin felt the truth of it. She would test him. Perhaps she did not trust him yet, or perhaps she simply wished to know his heart. Whatever the reason, he would face it. For Rin had taken an oath, and to him, an oath was stronger than gold, stronger than power, stronger even than fear. As the night deepened, he did not let himself rest. His watch had begun. The morning sun rose over the crystal towers of the palace, filling the sky with gold. Ren stood at his post outside the princess's chambers. His eyes were steady though he had not slept. Every sound in the corridors reached his ears, but none made him move from his place. The great doors opened, and Princess Liora stepped out in flowing white robes. She looked at him with calm eyes. "Come," she said, and began to walk. Ren followed, keeping a respectful distance. She led him through long halls, past guards in shining armor, and into a part of the palace Ren had not seen before. The walls here were covered with strange carvings, and the air smelled of old stone. "This is the Hall of the Ancients," she said. "Few are allowed here, but you will walk with me." They moved down the silent hall until they reached a chamber lit by glowing crystals. At the center stood a stone table covered with scrolls. Liora placed her hand on the table and turned to Ren. "Your first duty will not be easy," she said. "I will walk outside the safety of these walls. You will follow and guard me. The forests beyond are wild, and even my own people tread there with care." Ren bowed his head. "I will guard you, princess." She studied him for a moment as if searching for fear in his face, but Ren's eyes did not move. Without another word, she turned and left the chamber. The palace gates opened, and Ren felt the warmth of the outside world. Beyond the shining walls lay a vast forest with tall trees that reached into the clouds. The leaves glowed faintly, and strange birds flew overhead with bright wings. Liora walked with grace along a narrow path, her robes brushing against the tall grass. Ren followed closely, his hand resting on his simple blade. Every sound made him alert: the rustle of leaves, the call of hidden creatures, the crunch of soil under his boots. The princess stopped beside a stream. The water was clear, and small glowing fish swam within. She knelt and touched the surface, her reflection rippling in the light. "Tell me, Ren," she said without looking at him, "why do you guard me so carefully, even here? Do you fear the forest?" Ren shook his head. "I fear nothing, princess. But danger often hides where we least expect it." Her lips curved slightly, though she kept her eyes on the water. "Perhaps you are wiser than you look." They walked deeper into the forest. Hours passed, yet Liora did not seem tired. Ren, however, felt the weight of the long watch from the night before. His body ached, and his eyes burned with weariness, but he did not let it show. He kept his steps steady, his hand always ready. At last, Liora stopped near a tall tree whose trunk was wide enough to shelter a house. She sat upon a root and looked up at the sky beyond the branches. "Stay here through the night," she commanded. "No matter what comes, do not leave your post." Ren bowed. "Yes, princess." The day faded into twilight, and the forest grew darker. Strange sounds echoed through the trees. Ren stood with his back to the princess, scanning the shadows. The moons rose, painting the forest in silver light. His body longed for rest, but he forced his mind to stay sharp. Hours passed slowly. A cold wind blew, carrying whispers through the leaves. Ren gripped his blade tighter. His legs ached, yet he did not bend. His eyes felt heavy, yet he did not close them. Once, he heard a low growl from the darkness. A pair of glowing eyes appeared between the trees. A beast, tall and lean, stepped forward, its fangs shining. Ren did not move from his place. He raised his blade, his heart steady. The beast stared for a moment, then turned and vanished into the shadows. Liora, who had been silent, finally spoke. "You did not falter." Ren answered simply. "I swore to guard you." The night stretched on, and the stars wheeled above. By dawn, Ren's body felt as heavy as stone, but he remained standing, his watch unbroken. When the first light touched the forest, Liora rose from her place and looked at him. "You have passed this test," she said. "Though your body was weary, your spirit held firm." Ren bowed low, hiding the pain in his limbs. "Your safety is my honor, princess." For the first time, her voice softened. Perhaps there is more strength in you than the council believes? She walked back toward the palace, and Rin followed, each step heavy but sure. Though he was weary, a quiet pride burned in his chest. He had faced his first trial, and he had not failed. What he did not know was that this was only the beginning. The princess had many more tests in her heart, and each would reach deeper than the last. The palace courtyard was filled with colors on the day of the great ceremony. Bright banners hung from the towers, and music from alien horns echoed through the air. Nobles in silver robes gathered in circles, their voices rising in song. It was the celebration of the twin moons, a festival older than memory. Princess Liora walked at the center of the grand procession. Jewels glittered in her crown, and her robe shimmered like the night sky. Her steps were calm, her face serene, but her eyes were sharp, watching all who bowed before her. Beside her, Rin marched with steady pace. His blade hung at his side, plain compared to the shining weapons of the other guards. He wore no jewels, no golden crest. Yet his presence was strong, his eyes scanning the crowd without rest. From the balconies above, nobles watched with curiosity. Some whispered that the human looked out of place, a poor man among splendor. Others shook their heads, wondering why the princess allowed such a simple soldier to guard her. Rin heard the whispers, but he did not let them touch his heart. His duty was only the princess. The procession moved toward the great plaza where a high altar stood. Around it rose stone pillars carved with ancient signs. The air was filled with the smell of flowers and burning incense. Liora stepped onto the altar, raising her hands to the sky. Her voice rang clear as she spoke the ritual words in her own tongue. The crowd fell silent, listening. Rin stood at the base of the altar, his eyes never leaving her. He noticed movement at the edge of the crowd. A shadow slipped between bodies, too swift and too careful. His hand went to his blade. Then it came. From the rooftops above, dark shapes leapt down. They were masked figures, armed with blades that gleamed red. Shouts rose from the crowd, panic breaking the order of the ceremony. The princess turned, but before she could move, one of the masked attackers rushed toward her. Rin was faster. He threw himself forward, placing his body between the assassin and the princess. The red blade struck against his own, sparks flying in the air. The clash rang through the plaza. Rin held firm, his arms straining, but his eyes fierce. He pushed back with all his strength and struck the attacker across the chest. The figure stumbled, then fell to the stone floor. Two more came at him, blades flashing. Rin moved with sharp focus, blocking one strike, turning aside another. His blade was plain, but his will was iron. He fought not for glory, but for the life behind him. The other palace guards finally rushed in, their bright weapons humming. But many of them hesitated, surprised by the sudden attack. Rin did not wait for them. He faced the masked figures without fear, his body moving with instinct and purpose. One assassin broke past the line of guards and rushed toward the altar. Liora stood alone at the top, her eyes wide. Rin saw the danger and leapt onto the steps, his breath burning in his chest. He reached her just as the blade swung. With no time to think, Rin raised his arm and took the strike across his armor. Pain seared through him, but he did not fall. He countered with a swift blow that sent the assassin tumbling down the steps. The plaza echoed with shouts as the last of the attackers fled into the crowd. Guards chased them, but the damage was done. The sacred ceremony was broken, the nobles shaken, and the princess nearly lost. Liora stepped down from the altar, her eyes fixed on Rin. His arm bled from the cut, but he stood tall, his blade still ready. "You shielded me with your own body," she said softly. Rin bowed his head, his breath heavy. "It is my oath, princess. Your life comes before mine." For a long moment, she looked at him in silence. Then, With a small motion, she ordered the healers to tend his wound. As they worked, she stood near, her gaze never leaving him. When the crowd began to calm, the High Council arrived, their faces stern. One elder spoke to Liora. The ceremony was attacked. It was reckless to trust an outsider guard. You placed yourself in danger. But before the princess could answer, another elder pointed at Rin. And yet, it was this poor human who stood when others faltered. Without him, our heir would have fallen. The council grew silent at these words. Alira's eyes softened. She turned back to Rin. You fought not as one seeking reward, but as one bound by honor. That cannot be ignored. Rin bowed again, his voice steady. I am only your guard, princess. Nothing more. But inside, he felt something change. For the first time, the princess had spoken of him with respect, and the council had seen his worth. He knew more trials would come, but he would meet them the same way by standing firm, even when the world turned against him. As the twin moons rose that night, their light fell on the palace walls. In her chamber, Liora stood by the window, her thoughts deep. The image of Rin shielding her still burned in her mind. She had tested him with duty, and now fate had tested him with danger. In both, he had not failed. And so, her heart began to wonder what more she might see in the human who had nothing but his honor. The palace was calm after the attack, but whispers still moved through its halls. Nobles spoke of masked assassins and hidden enemies. Some blamed the council for letting danger near, while others wondered if the attack was part of a deeper plot. Through it all, Rin remained silent at his post. His wound had healed, but the memory of the blade across his arm stayed with him. Princess Liora, however, seemed thoughtful. Since the ceremony, she had watched Rin more closely. He had proven his courage, but courage alone was not enough. She wished to know the truth of his heart. Was he loyal only out of duty, or was there something deeper within him? One morning, she prepared her plan. She dressed not in her crown or shimmering robes, but in the plain clothes of an attendant. Her hair was tied back simply, and no jewels marked her brow. To the eyes of most, she looked like a servant of the court. When Rin came to stand at his post, she stepped into the hall. He did not bow as he would to a princess, but he did not ignore her either. He nodded with respect, treating her as he would any soul of the palace. You are the human guard, she said softly, hiding her true voice. I have seen you follow the princess. Is it not strange, to serve one so far above you? Rin answered with calm honesty. Strange, yes. But honor is not about standing beside equals. It is about keeping your word, no matter who you serve. The disguised princess tilted her head. But she is royalty, and you are poor. Do you not feel small in her presence? Rin looked at the floor for a moment before he replied. I do. I am only a soldier with nothing of value. But every life, whether noble or poor, has the same worth. If I see her as more than human, I will fail to guard her as she truly is. The words struck Liora deeply, though she kept her face calm. Few nobles had ever spoken of her in such a way. To most, she was a symbol, not a person. Yet this poor guard saw her as someone of equal worth. She decided to press further. Would you give your life for her, even though she may never know your name or thank you for it? Rin did not hesitate. Yes. An oath is not a bargain. It is a promise. If I must fall for her safety, then that is the end I will accept. Liora lowered her gaze, hiding the storm of feelings rising within her. She had tested many before nobles, warriors, men of wealth. Most had spoken of reward, of titles, of power that would follow service. But Rin asked for nothing. His answer was simple, but it was true. For several days, she continued her disguise, speaking with him at different times. Each time, Ren treated her with the same quiet respect. He never mocked her servant's robes, never questioned why she lingered near him. Instead, he spoke of his world. He told her of the small villages of Earth, where children played in fields and people worked hard to survive. He spoke of the wide skies filled with clouds, and the rivers that shone like glass in the sunlight. His words painted pictures of a world far humbler than her own, yet filled with a beauty she had never known. "You speak of Earth as though it is precious," she said one evening. "It is precious," Ren replied. "Not because of riches, but because it is home. Every stone and every tree holds memory." Liora felt a warmth in his words. Though he had little, he spoke with pride, not shame. She began to see that wealth was not always measured in jewels or crowns. One night, as the moons rose, she ended her disguise. She entered the hall once more, but this time dressed in her royal robes. Ren bowed deeply, as was his duty. "Princess," he said with respect. Liora looked into his eyes, searching for change. Did he see her differently now, after their talks? Would his words falter now that she stood before him in her true form? "Tell me, guard," she said, her voice firm, "if you could speak to me not as your princess, but as the woman I am, what would you say?" Ren raised his head slowly. His face was calm, his voice steady. "I would say the same words I spoke before. That you are as human as any, and your life has worth beyond crown or title. My oath to protect you does not change with your robes." The hall grew silent. For the first time, Alira's gaze softened openly. She felt her heart stir, though she did not show it to him. "You are honest, Ren," she said. "And honesty is rarer than gold. Remember these words, for they may guide you further than you know." She turned and left, her steps echoing against the crystal walls. Ren watched her go, his face calm, yet inside he felt the weight of her gaze linger. What he did not realize was that the princess's test was more than curiosity. She had begun to measure not only his duty, but his soul. And in doing so, she found herself drawn closer to him than she had ever expected. The days after the princess revealed her disguise brought a quiet change. Ren noticed it first in her eyes. Where before she had looked at him with sharp judgment, now there was warmth, as if she carried a secret she alone understood. She no longer tested him with silence. Instead, she began to speak more often, and Ren found himself answering not as a servant, but as a companion. It began in the palace gardens. The garden stretched across wide courtyards filled with glowing trees, fountains that sang with soft music, and flowers that shimmered like stars. Princess Liora walked among them with grace, her robes trailing lightly over the stone paths. Ren followed as always, but now her words filled the air. "Tell me of the skies of Earth," she asked one evening as they paused beneath the twin moons. Ren spoke simply, his voice low. "The skies of Earth change each day. Some mornings they are red with the rising sun. Some nights they are black with storms. But the best skies are filled with stars, wide and endless, making a man feel small but never alone." Liora listened with quiet interest. Her world was rich in light, yet the skies of her home never shifted as Earth's did. She felt something stir within her as Ren's words painted pictures of faraway horizons. On other days, Ren asked her in return, "And what of your people, princess? What is their greatest treasure?" She smiled faintly. "Knowledge. We guard our history, our wisdom, our art. It is our crown, more precious than gold." Together they walked through halls lined with carved stories. Liora showed him the images of her ancestors, heroes who had built kingdoms and crossed stars. Ren listened with care, his respect plain in his eyes. Yet when she asked his thoughts, he only said, "Even the greatest of kings must still keep their word. Honor is the root of all greatness." Her heart was moved by such simple truth. Their bond grew in small ways. When she walked, She slowed her pace so Ren's steps matched hers. When he kept watch through long nights, she sometimes brought a cup of warm drink and placed it in his hand without a word. Ren accepted with quiet thanks, though his heart beat with something he could not name. One afternoon, they visited the training grounds. Alien warriors sparred with bright weapons that hummed like fire. Their strikes were fast, their movements sharp. Ren stood at the edge, watching with keen eyes. "Would you train with them?" Liora asked. Ren shook his head. "Their blades are beyond me. Mine is plain steel." But she smiled and beckoned him forward. "A blade does not win battles. The hand and the spirit do. Show them your strength." Though hesitant, Ren stepped onto the ground. A tall warrior faced him, armed with a glowing spear. The nobles around laughed softly at the sight of the poor human with his simple sword. The match began. The alien's spear struck with flashing speed, but Ren moved with steady focus. He turned each strike aside, his body flowing with patience. He did not chase victory, he only guarded his ground. When the warrior lunged too far, Ren stepped in and touched his blade lightly to the man's chest. The match ended in stunned silence. Ren bowed humbly and stepped back. Alira's eyes shone with pride, though she hid her smile. "You see," she said softly to the others, "strength is not always born of power. Sometimes it comes from the will to endure." That evening, as they returned to her chambers, Ren spoke at last. "Why do you keep me close, princess? I am only a guard. Many speak ill of your choice." Liora paused, looking at him beneath the soft glow of lanterns. "Because, Ren, you show me truth. In a court filled with voices seeking power, yours alone asks for nothing. With you, I am not only a princess. I am simply a Liora." Ren was silent, her words resting in his heart like a flame. As weeks turned to months, their closeness became the subject of whispers. Some nobles claimed the princess had grown too fond of her human guard. Others warned that such ties would weaken her image before the council. Liora paid them no mind. Each day she sought Ren's company, and each day their bond grew stronger. One night, under the twin moons, she asked him to walk with her to the edge of the palace walls. Beyond stretched the forest, quiet and silver in the night. She stopped and looked at him with steady eyes. "Do you ever wish to return home?" she asked softly. Ren thought for a long time. "Earth is my home, yes. But my oath binds me here. Where you walk, I will walk." Her heart stirred at his words. She wanted to speak more, to tell him of the feelings she kept hidden. But she held them within, waiting for the right moment. For now, it was enough to know that in this vast palace filled with gold and stone, she had found one soul who saw her not as a crown, but as a woman. That night, Liora returned to her chambers with a smile she could not hide. And Ren, though silent as ever, carried the warmth of her gaze with him as he stood watch. The night was quiet, the twin moons casting silver light across the palace towers. Ren stood at his usual post outside the princess's chambers, his eyes watching the silent halls. He was used to such nights, endless hours of stillness, broken only by the soft sounds of the palace. Yet tonight felt different. There was a weight in the air, as though something waited to be spoken. The chamber doors opened, and Princess Liora stepped out. She was not dressed in royal robes. Instead, she wore a simple gown, the kind of clothing that hid her crown and rank. Her hair fell loose across her shoulders, catching the moonlight. Ren bowed deeply. "Princess," he said with respect. "Walk with me," she answered. Her voice was soft, yet there was a firmness that allowed no refusal. Ren followed as she led him through the silent corridors, past gardens glowing with pale flowers, and out onto a balcony that overlooked the wide forest. The air was cool, carrying the scent of night blossoms. Stars filled the sky, endless and bright. For a while, Liora said nothing. She rested her hands on the stone rail, her eyes on the horizon. Ren stood beside her, silent as ever, waiting for her words. At last, she spoke. "Do you know why I tested you so often, Ren?" Ren looked at her carefully. "I believed it was to see if I was worthy of guarding you." Her lips curved in a faint smile. "That was part of it. But the truth is, I wanted to know if there was more to you than duty. Many men stand with courage, but few stand with honesty. I needed to see if your heart was as strong as your blade." Ren did not answer at once. He searched her face, wondering if he should speak his thoughts. Finally, he said, "I am only a soldier, princess. My life is simple. I have no riches, no noble blood. All I can offer is loyalty." She turned to him then, her teal blue eyes shining in the moonlight. "And that is more than all the riches of this palace. Do you not see? Every noble I have known has wanted something from me: power, title, or favor. But you ask for nothing. You protect me not because of what I can give you, but because of who you are. That is why you are different." Ren's heart beat faster, though his face remained calm. "Princess, your words honor me, but I am your guard. It is my oath. I must not forget my place." Liora stepped closer. Her voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. "What if I told you that I do not see you only as a guard? What if I told you that my heart has chosen you, Ren?" He froze. The words struck him harder than any blade. For a moment, the world felt still. He had never imagined that such a thought could pass her lips. You honor me more than I deserve," he said, his voice quiet. "But I am unworthy of such feelings. You are a princess, heir to your people. I am nothing but a poor human from a distant world." Liora shook her head firmly. "No. You are not nothing. You are the one who shielded me from danger when others faltered. You are the one who faced my tests without complaint. You are the one who speaks to me as a Liora, not as a crown. That is worth more than noble blood." Ren turned his gaze to the stars, struggling with the storm within him. His heart longed to accept her words, yet his duty chained him. "If I return your feelings, I may fail my oath. My heart might blind me to danger." Liora reached out and touched his hand gently. "Or perhaps your heart will make your oath stronger. Love is not weakness, Ren. It is strength. With love, a guard becomes more than a protector. He becomes a partner, willing to stand against all odds." The touch of her hand burned with warmth. Ren looked at her, and for the first time, he allowed the truth in his heart to rise. "Princess Liora. I cannot deny it. In silence, I have grown close to you. I tried to keep it hidden, but each day, your words, your laughter, your trust have become dear to me. I would give my life not only out of duty, but out of love." Her eyes shone with joy, and a smile spread across her face. "Then speak no more of unworthiness. You have already given me the greatest gift, your heart." The night seemed brighter as they stood together on the balcony. The forest whispered below, the moons casting their light upon them. For the first time, Ren felt not like a guard standing behind his princess, but a man standing beside a woman. They remained there until the stars began to fade, sharing words of hope and dreams of what might come. Though Ren knew that challenges awaited them, disapproval from the nobles, questions from the council, he no longer feared them. For he and Liora had spoken the truth at last, and truth was stronger than doubt. As dawn touched the sky with gold, Liora whispered one final vow. "Whatever trials come, we will face them together. My crown may belong to the kingdom, but my heart belongs to you." And Ren, placing his hand over his chest, bowed his head not as a guard, but as a man in love. "Then my oath is no longer duty alone. It is devotion, until the end of my days." The morning after their confession, the palace seemed brighter to Liora, though the walls were the same crystal and the gardens the same glowing fields. She walked with a calm smile, her heart lighter than it had been in many years. Ren followed as always, but now every step carried new meaning. He was still her guard, yet between them there was no longer silence. But not all hearts in the palace were warmed by this change. Whispers spread through the noble courts. Some said the princess had lost her wisdom, giving her affection to a poor outsider. Others argued that the human had bewitched her with false loyalty. Soon, the council gathered, their faces stern, their voices filled with debate. On the day of judgment, Liora stood before the high council in the great chamber. Ren stood at her side, unarmed, for the council did not allow weapons inside. Tall pillars rose around them, carved with the history of her people. The elders sat in a half-circle, their robes heavy with symbols of power. The eldest elder spoke first. "Princess Liora, it has reached our ears that you have grown close to your human guard. Is this true?" Alira's voice was steady. "It is true. Ren has proven himself in courage, in honor, and in heart. I trust him more than any noble standing in this hall." Murmurs spread among the council. Some looked shocked, others angry. One elder rose, his hand trembling with indignation. "A princess cannot give her heart to a guard, and a human at that. Such a bond shames the throne." But another elder lifted his voice. "Did we not see with our own eyes? When assassins struck, it was the human who stood firm while our own warriors hesitated. Without him, the heir of our kingdom would have fallen. Is such loyalty not greater than bloodline?" The chamber shook with arguments. Some demanded Ren be sent away. Others urged that his worth be recognized. Ren himself stood silent, his eyes fixed forward. He felt the weight of their judgment, yet he would not plead for his place. His honor rested in his actions, not his words. As the debate grew, a sudden alarm echoed through the palace. Horns blared, and guards rushed into the chamber. An enemy force had breached the gates. The masked assassins had returned, this time with greater numbers, striking during the council's division. The elders panicked, many rushing for safety. Liora stood tall, her eyes fierce. "Ren," she commanded, "with me." Together, they ran through the halls, where chaos spread. Flames burned along the walls, and shouts filled the air. The enemy moved swiftly, cutting down guards and driving fear into the hearts of nobles. At the steps of the throne hall, the attackers gathered, seeking to claim the symbol of the kingdom. Ren drew his blade, his body weary yet unshaken. Liora refused to hide. She stood at his side, her voice ringing like steel. "This is my home, and I will not flee. Stand with me, Ren." He nodded once. "Always." The battle was fierce. Ren's blade met strike after strike, sparks flying as steel clashed. He fought with every ounce of strength, his body moving not for glory but for the life beside him. Liora herself lifted a ceremonial staff from the wall, striking down those who came too near. Side by side, they held the line, their courage a flame that burned against the tide of darkness. Other guards, seeing their princess fight without fear, rallied with new strength. They rushed to join her, and soon the hall echoed not with cries of panic but with shouts of defiance. The enemy faltered under the unity they had not expected. At last, the final assassin fell, and silence filled the hall. Smoke drifted through the air, but the palace still stood. Ren leaned against his blade, his breath heavy, while Liora placed her hand upon his shoulder. "You have saved me again," she said, her voice soft yet proud. When the council returned, their faces were pale with shame. They had doubted, they had argued, while the princess and her human guard had stood against death itself. The eldest elder lowered his head. "We cannot deny what we have seen. The bond between you has not weakened the crown. It has strengthened it. Let no one speak against it again." Liora lifted her chin, her voice clear. Then hear me now. I choose Rin not only as my guard, but as my partner. His honor has proven greater than fear, and his love greater than power. If my crown is to rule this kingdom, then my heart shall rule beside him. The council bowed, their arguments silenced. The people, hearing the tale of the battle, praised Rin's name. No longer was he a poor human lost among shining halls. He was the protector of their princess, and the man who had stood unbroken in the darkest hour. That night, beneath the twin moons, Rin and Liora walked together in the gardens. The air was quiet, filled only with the song of night birds. She took his hand without hesitation, and he did not let go. Their journey was far from over. Challenges would rise again, for love between worlds is never without trials. Yet they knew that whatever came, they would face it side by side. For the guard had become more than a protector, and the princess had become more than a crown. Together, they had written a new story for their people, one not of wealth or blood, but of honor, love, and the strength of a bond that no blade could break.